Hey y'all, so 2 weeks ago we started these tomato seedlings, and last week I actually had plans to up pot them to the next size pot because, as you can see, we're starting to get some, I don't know if you can see, the sun's gonna kill it, but we're starting to get some roots that are showing through on the end, and they're getting a little overcrowded in these, and they need something with a little bit more nutritious soil because seed starting mix is pretty bland. So I'm gonna up pot them to some regular soil, and that way we can also fertilize them as they need it. These do look a little bit stressed. Like I said, I was supposed to up pot them the middle of last week, but we had all that snow stuff going on. They have a little bit of purple going on, which just means that they've been a little bit stressed, and it's probably just because they've been in this with no nutrition. And so we're gonna up pot them today. I've been using this jungle growth. I get it at our Lowe's, and I really like this soil, so that's what I'm going to use today because it's easy for me to get my hands on. And this one has been sitting out in the garden, so it's full of moisture and really heavy. I use solo cups to up pot them in. I have taken a pair of scissors and just cut 2 slits into the edge of the bottom of the cup. You can take a hot nail or whatever and poke holes in the bottom. I find it easy just to use a pair of scissors, chop off a little bit of the edge of the cup, and then it has plenty of drainage holes. I like using the clear ones because then I can see the root growth and how much roots they're getting and make sure they're not getting root bound. Whereas if they're in something like this, you can't tell. So we're gonna use these today to up pot our tomatoes. So you want to check your soil before you just go dumping this into your garden beds, because this is also the soil that I use in my raised beds if I don't want to use my compost, because I have gotten a few bags from Lowe's recently that have a line of mold in them. Not sure, this bag looks good though. So what I do is I take my solo cup and I just put a little bit of soil in it. Now, some of these, you'll notice that multiple plants sprouted in the same cell, and I left them until this stage to make sure that both or all 3 plants and some of them were going to survive. Now, you can take the time and you can separate these plants from each other, and then you would have 2 plants out of 1 cell, or you can do what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to sacrifice 1 plant so that I have 1. So these are our bush Romas. Hopefully I don't forget that. I just give it a little bit of squeeze and they will pop right out. A tomato plant has a very hairy stem, and hopefully y'all can see that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to bury these in the cup as far as I can. This one's a little bit leggy. As far as I can, because it will form roots all along this stem. So I just kind of take it, you can break down the roots a little bit, shove it in my cup. Then I take some more soil and I just fill it all the way to the top. And then I put and now it is up potted and it will have plenty of room to grow in this cup. So we're gonna do all the rest. So every year I'm asked about how in the world I start these outside on my screened-in back porch, and I use these, they're small little greenhouses. They have 4 shelves, and they actually come with the lights, and I'll link them below. I linked them on my last video. So once I got them started inside, because I just left them inside while it was supposed to be super cold and we got all the snow, and so now I'm gonna put them on my screened porch. These have the plastic cover, which actually keeps them really warm. And you can place a thermometer in these so that you always know what temperature they're regulating. When it gets above 70 degrees outside, I unzip them and open them up for the day. Or if I see a bunch of humidity building in there, I'll unzip it and leave it open for the day. If the temps are gonna drop back down into the 50s, 40s, 30s, I have heat mats that I'll put on the bottom shelf. And because heat rises, that heat mat will keep this heated through the night when it's so cold. This is a way that I have figured out to start my seedlings without a greenhouse and without enough space inside of my house. It works for me, and it may not work for everybody. I don't see the point in building a greenhouse in Florida for the 3 months that I'll use it to start seeds. So this has the 3 different light settings. It also has the 3 timers for 3 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours for your grow lights to come on and off. This has been a game changer for me in starting seeds. So I'm gonna get the rest of my tomatoes up potted. So one thing I forgot to mention is these are the LED lights, and they have 1 light strip, which lights up this shelf pretty good. Now, if I notice that these are getting leggy, I have some extra light strips, and I'll just throw 2 light strips per shelf if I notice that these start to get leggy. Another thing that you can do is to raise your cups up off of this with like a cardboard box or anything so that they're closer to the light. It's never bothered me, or I haven't felt like my seedlings got leggy because they're down on this shelf. Okay, so I've gotten all the tomatoes up potted, but the same day that we started tomatoes in these cells that are now empty, we started peppers and tomatillos. Tomatillos are a lot like tomatoes. You'll bury them, they'll grow roots along the stem. Eggplants and peppers do not necessarily do that, so I just bury them right up to the surface and let them grow. I only need like 2 eggplant and 2 of the pepper plants, but they all sprouted. Somebody mentioned in the comments on one of the videos that I had these on the heat mat and they were tomatoes, and that the tomatoes didn't need as much heat as the peppers and I was gonna have issues, but as you can see, I didn't have issues, so I'm not sure what that was about. The peppers did sprout like 2 days after the tomatoes, so the tomatoes were only on the heat mat like 2 extra days and it didn't burn them. And the peppers all sprouted and eggplant just fine. So just a note from my last video. Okay, so I've got everything up potted and under the grow lights, and I figured I would go ahead and show y'all how I water them because it's very short and I don't think it needs to be in a completely other video. So in the mornings when the light comes on, because plants don't like wet feet, so it's best to water them in the morning, I'll come in here and I will put however many need water that day into one of these trays, fill it up with like 1 inch of water, let them sit for about 10 minutes and soak up as much water as they need. And then I just take them out and put them back on the shelf. That's the easiest way that I have found to water a bunch of plants at one time. I have 2 of these shelves. This one is almost full of eggplants, peppers, and tomatoes. So the other one I save when I start my squash, cucurbits, etc. And we're gonna start those in March. I'm going with March 15th as the last frost date because looking back at my records last year, I think it was like at the end of March when the cool weather went away. This year's really different because of the snow. So I'm already thinking it's harsher, so it might be the Easter, which is a whole month after our frost date. I thought it was only like 2 weeks, but when I got looking at it, Easter's like April, whatever, and our last frost date is March 15th. So there's almost like a whole month difference. But I'll start watching after March 15th. I'll start watching the weather 2 weeks out in advance, you know, the 10-day forecast. And if I don't think there's going to be any more cold weather, I'll go ahead and put my crops in. I have frost covers if cold weather decides to rear its ugly head. So hopefully all of this is gone by March 15th because it's gonna be stressful trying to keep it all in this size cup and in these shelves as the plants get bigger. But I've been doing this for 2 years this way and it has worked for me. Might not work for everybody. So while I've got my whole back porch a mess, I forgot that I'd ordered a pack of Baker Creek seeds when I made the last video and said the only pepper that I was going was a Hungarian or a banana pepper. Yeah, I had a whole order of Baker Creek seeds show up that I forgot about. So anyway, I ordered the Kajari melons. I'm gonna try those this year. Zinnia's Oklahoma Pink. I do the Louisiana Long Pod Okra. This worked really good for me last year, and the Heavy Hitter Okra. I'm gonna try ground cherries this year. It just seemed like something different. So I'm gonna go ahead and start those because they're 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date. I realized that we were out of pepper jelly when I ordered these at Christmas Eve. So, I want to use yellow and orange peppers for my pepper jelly just so that it has more of that hue instead of the greens. And so I got these lemon spice jalapenos to try. I got the Sugar Rush Peach pepper for an added hint of spice. And I got the pumpkin spice jalapenos, and then they sent me the free lettuce. So I'm gonna get these started. I'm gonna use these bigger seed cells because I only need 2 of each of these plants and I don't want a whole tray. So I'm gonna use these bigger cells, put them on my heat mat in my little grow lights in my freezer room, and we'll get these started. I don't really know anything about a ground cherry, just everybody is always talking about them. And so I decided that I was going to try them. I'm gonna assume that they need a heat mat just like peppers. That's why I'm planting them with these, and hopefully it will be okay. These seeds are insanely tiny, so I'm just gonna put a couple on the top of the soil. And it said to just lightly cover them. Okay. So now I have the peppers and the ground cherries on the heat mat with the light down low. These containers don't have a humidity dome, so I'll just come like twice a day and spray these and make sure that they're nice and moist across the top until they sprout. Hopefully that answers all the questions about the next stage of starting your own seeds. Now I have a huge mess to clean up, so I'm gonna go clean this up and I'll keep y'all posted with updates.